pour your hand for South Australia. All the way you're rolling King, all the way you'll hear me sing, come for South Australia.
And here we are. So, for everyone else, welcome back to another episode of Oh, the Tales We Tell Cornwall. My name's James, I'm your host, and I am joined by the very, very talented Keith Sparrow this afternoon. Thank you for joining me, Keith.
No problem. Hi, James.
Yeah, it's great to see you. It's been a long, long time, and yeah, thanks very much for having a chat with us. We've already had a quick chat creatively, throwing around some ideas, so that's quite nice.
Yeah.
So to kick off the episode, as we've spoken with all of our other guests, if we were meeting up in person today, if the world allowed it, where would we be and what would we be up to?
I think, to be honest, I'd be in one of my favourite places, which is sat outside the watering hole in Perranporth.
Excellent.
Watching a very slow sunset and drinking a beer.
Nice.
and just chatting. I'm really attached to the watering hole, and I'm attached kind of spiritually, I suppose, in one way to Perranporth, because it was one of the first places when I first moved to Cornwall many years ago now. It was one of the first places I just sat and thought about where I've ended up, and obviously that's where St Piran supposedly landed. And it's kind of where Cornwall started. I suppose in one sense, not started, because I've obviously had this whole Celtic sort of history. But so we would be sat outside.
Nice.
There's nothing better than watching the sun go down at Perranporth.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and I do like talking over a drink, whether it's a coffee or a beer.
Yeah.
There's something quite liberating about being outdoors, and obviously that's a big Cornish thing anyway.
Definitely.
Outdoors.
Yeah, we've been going to St Agnes Head quite a lot recently.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I mean, it was really funny because we were just talking about like big screens and things like that. Honestly, just watching the sunset on that, it just looks like you're on the biggest cinema screen ever, and you've just got the sun going down as the whole film. I'd rewatch that every single day.
Yeah, you get such a feeling of space, don't you?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Which I kind of grew up around London, and that's one thing that you never get there. You get a sense of being in a very big space, but not open. It's building. So being able to sit there and just watch this vast expanse of sea and sky. Can't beat it.
So, for anyone who doesn't know, please tell us a bit about the various different strands of your creative work, because I know there are many.
Well, there's quite a lot of them, I suppose. Is the short answer. I kind of spent most of my life being an illustrator and a singer, and it was only when I came to Cornwall, really, I kind of opened up and discovered different ways of art, of creation and performance, and so now basically I could best describe what I do as an illustrator, a singer, a writer, an actor, and a general performer. I've directed in the past, which I quite enjoy, but I'm not a natural director, I suppose. So I tend to kind of be quite selective about where and how I do that. But I just try different ways of expressing myself creatively, I suppose.
Sure.
And luckily, Cornwall's a very creative place with a lot going on, and so you do get opportunities to try different things. And I would never say never. I've done a couple of dance shows, for instance. I'm not a natural dancer, but it was a real challenge to try and do that. And there are very few things I would not try, I suppose.
Okay. Oh, go on. Well, yeah, exactly. And I think that's it's brilliant. That kind of encouragement to just go out and try stuff, especially in the county that we're in. There are so many opportunities, aren't there? I mean, I know that obviously you there's Coppice Theatre.
Yeah, I work with Coppice a lot.
Yeah, and which are brilliant. I mean, especially at Christmas time, we always see you guys out and about doing the sort of Jack Frost stuff, and that's always an absolute blast.
it's become a thing in Truro, luckily, because that's where I live. So Truro have kind of embraced Coppice as the company they go to put something on at Christmas now. And it's been a lot of fun developing the shows with them. They're a young company. I'm sure you know. There are some people that work within Coppice who I previously worked with in the Story Republic. And we've kind of grown up together and developed this style of performance. It's children's sort of performance, so it's a lot of fun to do. And they're just growing leaps and bounds, and they've got about 3 shows on the go at the moment. We've taken shows to Edinburgh, to the Fringe, which was a new thing for me, and which I found really exciting. We do the Christmas shows in Truro, obviously, but we also do touring shows. And they work with emerging performers and writers. So there's a pool of talent there, which is kind of learning and growing together. So it's been a lot of fun working with them, I must say.
And I think that's quite a nice thing as well, because you look at it at other theatre companies down, especially in Cornwall, and there is that kind of almost style of making work with the pool of talent that you have. Quite a bit, isn't there? With I know with the different theatre companies, Rogue and others have kind of these little pools of creative people that they can pull in and come up with new ideas, new shows, and new ways of doing things as well.
And there's a really wonderful kind of cross-pollination with all the other different creative groups and people. Cornwall's got a lot of creative working here, and it's funny how often you work with somebody that you've worked with before in a completely different scenario. Like just yesterday, we were doing something at the City Hall in the council building in Truro, and there was a young guy called Will Husband, I think his surname is Husband, but he reminded me that we worked together for Cube Theatre a few years ago on the Crucible, and it's nice seeing young people like that kind of growing up and like developing their talent. They go away to uni or drama school, they come back, and it all kind of helps to keep the mix fresh.
And it's almost like they never really left the pool. It's just that they went away for a bit.
You go away, you learn a bit,
come back.
You know, you learn some new skills, and then you come back and feed them back into Cornwall. It's brilliant.
I mean, we'll kind of hopefully touch on this a little bit later, but obviously your work with the Writer's Block, obviously kind of that incredible network of creatives of all types sharing their work. So in terms of the various different storytelling then that you do with the different creative branches that you have with the work, what's your favorite? And I suppose I know it's a really big question, but I suppose also with it being your favorite, why do you think it's a really good tool to kind of engage people if that's what you're aiming for?
All kind of, like if you're talking about storytelling, that is about engaging an audience, about engaging people with a story, and it's something that humans do kind of instinctively with each other. We tell them stories, and whether it's the way storytelling evolved from people sitting around a fire back in years gone by, or taking it to making a film, or that it's all the same. Instinct is to engage with other people and to share an experience and to affect them and you kind of in some emotional way, I think. So they're all kind of equally relevant or equally interesting in a way. I suppose if you're asking me which one would be my favorite, it would be quite hard to say one, because that would mean I'm saying that I prefer that to that, and that's not true. I enjoy the different disciplines. I really enjoy, like for example, my roots are in illustration, and I really enjoy telling stories through pictures. I grew up reading comics. I read a lot of manga comics, which is like Japanese art, and I do workshops with kids to develop their storytelling skills through drawing, which is manga related. And I think for a lot of people, that is the quickest way, beyond just telling a story verbally.
Sure.
The quickest way is to do it through pictures. That's how I got interested in writing and in storytelling, and it's something that anyone can do, with a bit of encouragement to express themselves. So I really enjoy telling stories through pictures. I do love writing stories. I've got more into writing stories, like particularly with Coppice Theatre recently. I've been supplying them with stories because their shows are about storytelling. So I enjoy writing, just sitting down, the discipline of forming words on a page. You know, I've always loved books, so it's quite a challenge to keep it tidy, keep it succinct, keep it direct, and still have some sort of emotional impact to it. So I enjoy that. I don't know. I love standing on a stage and singing or acting as well. That's a completely different muscle. I've just started reading a book by Tracy Thorn about the art of singing, and how it's much harder and much more complicated than people tend to think it is. And it's making me think about the way I've always sung. You know, I started when I was at school. Like, I joined a band at school, the usual thing, and started singing. And I've never really thought too much about how I sing the way I do, or why I sing the way I do. And there's something quite emotional about singing, which I've sung with male voice choirs down here. I've done shows which were singing based. I've done work with a local opera company. It's a kind of a different thing to sitting down and drawing or writing or even acting. There's something about singing which is very instinctive and it flows from you. So in some ways that's the most exciting feeling, because you actually kind of excite yourself at the same time as the audience. You get lost in it, basically. I don't think you do when you're writing. I think you're too conscious of the craft of what you're doing, and you're thinking about it and re-editing it and revising it. Whereas with singing, you're just naked on stage and letting it come out, and it's actually quite moving. So I suppose if there was one thing that I would not want to live without, it would be singing.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a great way to shape that question in a different way. Is what could you not live without? And I think that you're so fully immersed when you're performing within that. Especially, I mean, I'm no singer, and I wish I could play an instrument as well, but apparently my body just doesn't have the rhythm. But I do understand that complete immersion when you're performing, when you're there in that moment. And like you said, it's very different when you're trying to write, or you're creating a story that's on paper or in pictures or something like that. It's a different one. It's a different way of performing.
It is. It's work, whereas singing doesn't. It is work, but it doesn't feel like work.
No.
If you know what I mean, it's the one thing that you can do, and playing an instrument probably. I mean, although you could argue that the voice is just another instrument. Because it's internal. You don't have to have the same relationship as you do with a guitar or piano or a drum kit. It's different. It's very here. You know, it's very inside you. So I think the emotional connection is really direct and strong.
And especially being so close to kind of the heart and the topper end of the body with the brain. It's nice. That's a nice way to put it. That actually it is closer as a singer and a performer in that sense.
And by the way, I firmly believe anybody can sing. Like you say, you wish you could sing.
Oh no! So
it's funny. People do wish they could sing, but they can. It's just tuning the instrument, finding your voice. You know, finding your individual way of singing. I mean, everyone knows there are people like Bob Dylan who don't sound like singers, but there's something really affecting about their voice, or Tom Waits or Iggy Pop. You know, these people aren't naturally what we might think of as a singer, but there's something, they just let it out.
Definitely. I have done a bit of singing in the past, and I think it's more actually the playing an instrument that I struggle with. I do quite like to sing, you know, like when you're kind of by yourself, or you've got an empty house and you just stick the radio on or whatever, and you sing along to some songs.
Yeah.
I love that. It's actually
Everyone
playing
does.
the instrument that I struggle with.
Yeah.
It's too many moving parts.
Yeah, and there's a disconnect between what your hands are doing
Mhm.
and what your brain's doing. I'm not very good with that disconnect. I can play very rudimentary guitar, but I could sing, and until I'm blue in the face, it comes it comes out. But learning an instrument is a bit like learning a language for me. It takes a lot of patience.
Again, another thing that I struggle with.
Yeah.
So what would be your top bit of advice for a creative in the county today? Yeah, about anything creative.
To be creative in well, I would say if I was talking to somebody inside Cornwall, for instance, I would say that you've got a kind of a head start in some ways, because we are in a kind of a little corner. We're tucked away a bit in this very kind of physical environment, which is very exposed to nature in a lot of ways, whether it's the rain or the sun or the sea. And I think that leads to a kind of a freedom to try things, a freedom to express yourself in ways that you might not think that you could do if you were living in a big urban place like London or wherever. So you've kind of got a head start, I think, being here. But my big thing is, and I always say this too, I do some mentoring work with younger people that are kind of not quite sure how to progress into adulthood and where that takes you. And I always say, just say yes to anything. You know, just if somebody asks you to do something, your immediate response should be, I don't know, but I'll try, rather than, oh, I couldn't do that. And I know that's easy for me to say, but I've always adopted that as a self kind of thing. If somebody asks me to do something, and it's some things that I've never tried before. I did an exhibition about 3 or 4 years ago at Trellisset Gardens, where they asked me to do these huge canvases, caricatures of a previous owner and the politics of the time. And I'd never kind of worked on big canvases. I've always worked quite, like A2 would be my maximum.
Sure, yeah.
And now we're talking about like the size of a wall.
Yeah.
I was a bit nervous about doing it because I wasn't sure, if I could do it, what kind of materials I might need to use, how they're going to look, how can I work at scale. But it's just one of them things where just say yes and then work out how to do it. And it's the same with like I did a show with Duchy Ballet about 3 or 4 years ago as well. And I'm not a ballet dancer, and I was on stage with a lot of ballet dancers, and I wasn't doing the ballet dance, but I had to dance at one point, and I was acutely aware that some of these dancers, they're so skilled and they work hard at what they do, but just kind of do it with a smile on your face, and just throw yourself into it. And I would say to anyone wanting to work in the arts, A, throw yourself into anything you can. B, do it with glee, because it's such a privilege to be able to work creatively. I think, you ask anyone that has to work in an office or work in a factory, it's such a privilege to be able to work creatively and just enjoy every second of it. Have confidence in yourself. And what your potential is, I would advise.
I think that's a wonderful piece of advice. It's so important, isn't it? Especially because having creative works and things like that, it's understanding that also some things might not work out, and that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
That is absolutely fine. So long as you are doing what you said, throwing yourself into it, but also having fun while you're doing it. If it doesn't quite go the way that you were expecting, that's okay. That is more than okay, because at the end of the day, the pages are still being written.
Exactly. Failure is great in a way, because you learn something. And everyone forgets about, like, your failure is not the end of the world. It's like, if you do something badly or it goes wrong, doesn't matter. Just pick yourself up and go on to the next thing and say, I learned something from that. And don't be afraid to say when you can't do something. Don't be afraid to kind of be honest about it and say, look, I'm not sure I can do this right now, but I can try, I can learn. And don't beat yourself up about it if it goes wrong. It's nothing. It's chip paper, you know. It's like tomorrow's chip paper. It doesn't matter.
So I'd say that probably our final question, I won't take up too much more of your time today, would be, what are you most excited about in Cornwall now that things are, starting back up? Is it a walk that you're looking forward to going on? Is it a gig that you're excited to see? What are you most excited about?
I'm so excited to get back to seeing live bands. I've got to be honest, I have seen bits of theatre which they managed to squeeze in the last kind of window of around August last year, and there's lots of theatre out there at the moment. But I do remember what I really missed in the last year and a half was, for instance, I went to see a band called Feet. I think they were called in Hillbillies Bar in Falmouth.
Oh yeah.
I've never been to Hillbillies.
Oh, Hillbillies is great.
Little downstairs bit where it's literally kind of as wide as not even my front room. It's narrower than that, and you're standing there like packed in with people, and this band are right in front of you. There's something really kind of that energizes me about that, and I really want to get back and see some live music. Bands, and just people crowded together. I really miss kind of being crowded.
Something about that atmosphere in there.
And I know it's like we're in the middle of the holiday season in Cornwall, and everyone kind of complains about the roads being crowded and the town's crowded. And I was in Truro earlier, and it was really busy. But I love people. I love being amongst a lot of people. I'm funny like that. It's it fires me up, and it makes me feel connected to the species. And we've spent a couple of years of feeling disconnected from each other. And that's been, it's been good in a way, because it's allowed everyone to kind of reset and start again and think about stuff. Maybe, I hope so. As a species, we tend to just kind of, I'm going to change my life from now, and then 3 months later you're exactly where you were before this all started, and that's good. It's a survival thing. But I hope we've learnt to appreciate each other a bit more. Really,
I hope so too, so that actually when we get back to places like Hillbillies and we're going and seeing gigs, we're enjoying it even more. Because we realise what we didn't have and what we do have now. So
I'll be crammed in there. And I'll be wanting to go to the bar, and I'll be thinking, why is it so crowded? I can't get to the bar now.
Exactly.
It'll
go to the other side. It'll go to the other side of the scale. Well, Keith, thank you so much for having a chat with me. I'm sure our listeners are going to absolutely love hearing about all of your work. And I know that there are some things coming up for you, like your workshops that you mentioned. So people can keep an eye out on social media, I'm sure, and follow you for more creative exploits.
And you've got the Dream of Henry Blight written up right here, and just a quick plug, we that is an original work which we'll be performing. We were hoping to do it in Falmouth in September at the Poly, but the auditorium's still having some work done. It's not going to be ready, so we're looking to do it at an alternative venue, possibly in Truro in October, and that'll be original music with original film performed live. I want to get hundreds of people in there all jammed up against each other.
Too right. That's going to be really exciting. So I'm sure that hopefully, all being well, the next time I see you in person again, I'll be there.
Cool, man.
Thanks very much, and you as well. And thanks again. We'll see you soon.